I once ate junk food for a whole week straight at 9 years old. I felt insanely guilty and self-conscious about the way I ate, but unfortunately at the end of the day, I had nothing else to eat because that's all my mom could afford as she was trying to support 3 kids on her own and was insanely overworked. According to the Baltimore Sun, on March 27, 2025, 40% of US children battle some sort of chronic disease such as asthma, obesity, diabetes, or even some sort of mental health disorder due to the critically low value found in school lunches, but also dangerously high sugar levels found in them as well. Today, I'm here to convince you that food industries need mandatory and healthier guidelines on food regarding processed and added sugars. First, I will go over the problems of processed and added sugars and sugar addiction overall, and I will go over the causes, and last, I will offer solutions that will allow us to break away from our sugar addiction. First, going over the problems, the 2 main problems here is that it creates physical health issues and also addictive behavior. Going back to the physical health issues that it creates, on March 22, 2025, according to the Hindu Chennai, several credible health organizations conducted and founded studies linking sugar addiction to obesity, diabetes, other metabolic disorders, and even cancer. In addition to that, sugar addiction also creates hormone imbalances, which can lead to weaker muscle recovery for those that live a more active lifestyle, but for everyone else, chronic kidney and liver failure. Which those hormone imbalances lead us to our next problem, being that it creates addictive behavior. So besides the hormone imbalances, the sudden sugar crashes that you get can lead to irritability, mood swings, and overall fatigue, leaving you to relapse and crave sugar again to keep your mood up. In addition to that, the Ian's English New Delhi on January 12, 2020, researchers found that sugar impairs the brain's ability to properly communicate. So that leads to learning difficulties and impaired memory, and with the brain struggling to properly operate, it can contribute to depression and anxiety. Now that we've discussed the problems, let's get into the causes of sugar addiction. The 2 main causes being aggressive marketing and normalized overconsumption. Going back to aggressive marketing, there are ads everywhere for ultra-processed sugars. In a post or newspaper from the Sunday Post on September 29, 2024, I quote, "There is no escaping fast food. Every town and city is crisscrossed by junk food, highways and billboards, and bus stops advertising unhealthy foods that are high in sugar and salt." So with ads everywhere, constantly making you think about sugary foods, it makes you crave them and end up consuming them, keeping you in an aggressive cycle of sugar addiction. In addition to that, strategic placement at grocery stores such as Walmart, Target, and Rouse have strategic placements of candies, chips, any sort of snack that is high in sugar, strategically placed at eye level, especially at checkout aisles, encouraging you to buy them or passively selling. Which brings us to our next main cause. With such small items still having or containing high amounts of sugar in small portions, it leads us to normalized overconsumption, which is our next main cause. According to the online Wall Street Journal, Dow & Jones Company Incorporated, on September 28, 2020, they list many items or everyday items that have been found to have insanely high amounts of added sugars, such as candy, coffee and tea, breakfast cereals, and even breakfast bars. In addition to that, they point out that a 16-ounce grande or medium pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks can contain over 50 grams of sugar, which is definitely over 10% of the recommended intake set by the US. Which, besides our everyday items that we buy and consume, restaurants are also to blame for normalized overconsumption. So the US is actually known to have larger food proportions compared to any other countries. So while it may sound nice to take a bunch of leftovers home, you're actually still consuming a lot of sugar over that span of a week, however long it takes to consume that, but you're still consuming high amounts of sugar, which contributes to more health risks over time. Now that we've discussed the causes, let's get into the solutions. The main ones here is to put restrictions on advertisements, and the second one being to introduce slow dietary changes. What I mean by putting restrictions on advertisements, some great proposals come from the Irish Examiner on October 28, 2024, and they propose a national food strategy to put a ban on marketing of all unhealthy foods on all digital and physical infrastructures, so like billboards, bus stops, or even the ads that you find scrolling between social media. But they also propose a salt and sugar reformulation tax on junk food, proposing or forcing companies to make their fast food healthier, and also with that revenue going towards making their food more accessible to low-income groups. And some personal steps that we can take, I say again, to introduce slow dietary changes, specifically slow ones. A great suggestion comes from the Mercury on January 28th, 2025, and they acknowledge that it's very hard to cold turkey an addiction, especially a sugar one, and just cut it out completely. So instead, they introduce or suggest to progressively adjust your sugar intake with sweetened beverages over time. So for example, if you're drinking 3 to 4 sodas a day, replace one of those with at least a cup of water and progressively adjust over the weeks with maybe 2 cups, 3 cups, etc. And something I personally suggest is to meal prep a balanced diet each week. So while you're still having sugary cravings or you want to go out and buy ultra processed foods that are high in sugar, you already have prepped a meal at home that you can eat, and you don't want that food to go to waste because you spend so much time and money on it. Now that we've discussed the solutions, let's wrap it up and review what we discussed. Today, I convinced you that we need to break away from sugar addictions, especially focusing on food industries to have mandatory health regulations and restrictions on processed and added sugars in their food. First, I went over the problems of sugar addiction, being that it creates physical health issues and addictive behavior. Then I went over the causes, being aggressive marketing with ads, and the second one being normalized overconsumption in the US. And last, I offered solutions, being to put restrictions on such advertisements, and the last one being to introduce, again, slow dietary changes. I'm in a healthier state with meal prepping, and I have a much more balanced diet, but I have a lot of, I found meal prepping to be much more, cooking kind of a hobby now, because I have a lot of fun cooking cultural meals such as pho or Vietnamese spring rolls. But together, if we become more aware of our sugar intake, such simple things as reading labels or planning out your next lunch for tomorrow at work, we can live much longer, healthier, and happy lives. Yay!